Good morning, I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily update for November 24th, 2021. I want to begin by talking about an offensive which has been launched by the LaRouche Organization and the Schiller Institute to reverse the collapse of the system and replace it with a new paradigm. This is the result of some work that came out of the November 13th and 14th conference the Schiller Institute just had, and it's designed to put together some committees to address the most immediate dangers facing humanity. There are four committees. The first one is strategic. How do we get to cooperation rather than confrontation? How do we break out of the straitjacket of geopolitics? And there are some immediate developments on that, including very significant participation of the Schiller Institute in an event that took place yesterday in Yemen. Secondly, Operation Ibn Sina, which is a campaign to intervene to stabilize the situation in Afghanistan, where you have hunger and disease stalking millions of people, and a refusal from the transatlantic powers to intervene to help people who are still suffering from the effects of 40 years of war visited upon them primarily by Western military and political leaders. The threat of hunger is extreme, and there must be immediate action there. The third committee is on COVID, and there's a very interesting development here. An open letter to medical personnel from former U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Joycelyn Elders, who's working with the Schiller Institute's Committee on the Coincidence of Opposites, where she calls on medical professionals to address the COVID pandemic with science and medical know-how, not competing narratives. And that's available on the Schiller Institute webpage. And then finally, an open letter published in the Danish press from Clintel's Dr. Gus Berkhout. What is happening with our universities? And he talks about the universities submitting to climate activists who are refusing to allow a really honest, open debate. So these four committees represent new initiatives toward winning people to understand not just that there's a lot of bad things going on, but there are solutions. And I'd urge you to look at our website on the schillerinstitute.com and see if there's something you'd like to participate in, and if so, get in touch with us right away. Now let me take up the most immediate danger, which is the threat of war with Russia. The provocations with Russia are escalating. Naturally, this happens when the COVID pandemic seems to be breaking out of control, when the hyperinflation is destroying the credibility of governments in the West, at the point at which the COP26 conference flopped. What better to distract people with than the idea of the boogeyman about to invade Western Europe? Now, this all-out offensive from U.S. intelligence includes the report that there are 90 to 100,000 Russian troops on the Ukrainian border, and an imminent invasion is expected by perhaps the end of January or February. This is what Director of National Intelligence Avril Haines brought to the NATO alliance this week in Brussels. Secondly, the U.S. Strategic Command is conducting an exercise which was reported by Russian military commander Shoigu, who said that this includes 10 U.S. strategic bombers flying within 12 miles of the Russian borders, practicing the use of nuclear weapons. It's called Global Thunder. There's also 30 other air sorties close to the Russian border. In addition, you have naval exercises continuing almost on a daily basis in the Black Sea. Then you have a report that the Biden administration is considering sending military advisors and additional weapons to Ukraine. And the talk again is escalating of bringing Ukraine into NATO, which President Putin has said would be a deliberate crossing of a red line, as Russia will not allow NATO to take part, or Ukraine to take part in NATO. And then you also have the cutoff, or not the cutoff, but the non-certification of gas from the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Now, this is supposedly to punish Russia, but in reality, who's being punished by it? the people who need the gas, who are paying exorbitant prices right now for electricity in Western and Central Europe. It's expected that in Germany alone, the utility prices will go up 14% in November. Now, all of this is occurring, as I pointed out, when it's becoming more and more obvious to people that there's a systemic crash underway in the West. Nothing seems to work. You have the hyperinflation. You have hospitals that are overburdened. You have the energy prices going through the roof, one after another crisis. The education crisis, the fact that people don't trust government, don't trust politicians, and don't trust the media. So we have been working to establish a dialogue among people from many countries, many cultures, to address these problems. Now, one of the other things that's happening parallel to this is the continuing exposure of the fraud of Russiagate. And this is from the latest indictments from Prosecutor Durham, which makes the point very clearly that Russiagate was a collusion between the Clinton campaign, the U.S. intelligence community, the major media, and especially British intelligence, designed to prevent Donald Trump from following through on his pledges to end the wars and establish friendly relations with Russia and China. Now, say what you might about the exposure. There's lots of exposure. We've done this repeatedly, and there are many other people who have written reports on this. But the mainstream media continues to lie. People like Adam Schiff, who can't open his mouth without lying, are continuing to use the Russiagate narrative. And what's the intention of this? Well, it's to ensure that we are on a course toward war because it makes Russia an enemy image, whether it's the lies about Putin poisoning his enemies, Russia engaging in cyber warfare against the United States, bullying its neighbors, threatening to invade Western Europe. All of these things are part of a narrative which is designed to strengthen the stranglehold of the military-industrial complex on the institutions of the transatlantic region. That's why we have to have an offensive that's based on truth, that's based on getting the story out to people. And I would urge people then to go to the schillerinstitute.com website and look at the conference from November 13th and 14th. It was a very lengthy conference because there were many absolutely fascinating interventions, people from all over the world participating. And out of that, Mrs. LaRouche has organized 4 committees to address these immediate problems and take them up in the most profound way possible. What's necessary now is for more people to join us and to raise their voices in concert with us, as we're seeing individuals from around the world do so. And when I say around the world, I mean including in the United States. So I think this is something to this gives you something to chew on Thanksgiving if you can't afford a Thanksgiving turkey this year. I will not be doing an update tomorrow because of Thanksgiving. I wish you and your family a happy Thanksgiving and a productive discussion about how we save our nation and save humanity from the reign of terror and dictatorship being brought to the world from the City of London, Wall Street, Silicon Valley, and their allies. Thanks, and I'll see you again on Friday.